Marine Dyson comes back with a shocking revelation of angels over the battlefield. My name is Sergeant Elias Vance, and for 20 years the battlefield was my reality. I was a Marine, a grunt, a professional warrior. My world was defined by the crack of gunfire, the grit of sand, the harsh, unforgiving logic of combat. I believed in tangible threats, in quantifiable risks, in the cold, hard truths of ballistics and strategy. God, to me, was a concept, a quiet comfort for those back home, but not a presence in the dust and blood of the front lines. My faith, such as it was a simple pragmatic thing. I believed in something bigger than myself, sure, but I believed more in my rifle, my brothers and my training. Prayer was a last resort, a desperate whisper, when all else failed, certainly not an active force on the ground. I saw war as a purely physical endeavor, a grim chess match played with flesh and steel. Good men died, bad men died, and the only determining factors were skill, luck, and the enemy's resolve. There was no room for the unseen, no spiritual dimension to the brutal calculus of survival. My wife Maria was different. Her faith was a vibrant, constant flame, a deep well of prayer and compassion. She'd send me letters filled with verses about angels and divine protection, about the power of prayer. I would read them, smile, and file them away, touched by her innocence, but certain that her God had little sway over the chaos I faced daily. My squad, my brothers in arms, were a mix of hardened realists, quiet believers, and cynical atheists. We respected each other for what we did, not what we believed. My commanding officer, Captain Miller, was a brilliant tactician, a man who saw the world in shades of gray, a man who believed only in the measurable, the observable. He saw faith as a civilian luxury, something to leave at home. I was a man of action, of quantifiable results, and I was proud of the clear, stark lines I drew in my world. I had no idea that the battlefield I thought I knew was merely the visible surface of a far greater, unseen war. I had no idea that the very ground I fought on was swarming with forces I could not comprehend, and that the God I barely acknowledged was about to drag me into a reality that would shatter my physical certainties and redefine everything I thought I knew about war, about life, and about the true nature of courage. I was about to find out that the greatest battle was not fought bullets, but with prayers, and that the true war was far from over. It happened in Helmand Province, a place where the air itself seemed to crackle with tension, a place that tasted of dust and despair. We were on patrol, a routine sweep through a seemingly deserted village, searching for an insurgent cell. The silence was thick, heavy, unnatural. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. My senses were heightened, every shadow a potential threat, every gust of wind a whisper of danger. We moved with precision, eyes scanning, rifles ready, and then, the world exploded, not with a bang, but with a sudden silent concussive force that slammed into me from below. An IED. The ground beneath me erupted, throwing me violently into the air. Time stretched, warped. I saw my brothers flung like rag dolls, their screams swallowed by the roar of the blast. The sky was a dizzying blur of dust and fire. Pain, blinding and absolute, erupted throughout my body, a searing, consuming fire that obliterated breath, thought, and sensation in an instant. It felt like every bone in my roadie shattered, every muscle tore. My last conscious thought, a desperate, guttural cry, was for my squad, my family, a silent plea for them to be safe. Not them, and then, nothing. Absolute, silent, empty darkness. But the darkness was not the end. The next lessness was one of impossible lightness, a profound and immediate release from pain and weight. I was floating, I was perfectly calm, perfectly peaceful, and I was lighter than a feather, drifting effortlessly upwards. I was hovering above the chaotic scene of destruction, looking down. Below me the dust was slowly settling, revealing the mangled remains of our patrol, flashing emergency lights, frantic movements of medics, the shouts of my remaining squad members. And there, lying twisted amidst the rubble, my own body still and broken, its uniform torn and stained with crimson. I watched, detached and serene, as if observing a stranger's tragedy. I felt a pang of sorrow for the crumpled figure, for the man who had fought his last battle, for the wife and son who would soon receive devastating news. I could hear faintly the urgent voices of the medics. Multiple fractures, massive blood loss, no pulse. He's gone through the area. He's deceased. Their words so final, so absolute, registered with a strange indifference. I felt no fear, no grief, just a quiet curiosity about what came next. The scene below began to dim, the vibrant chaos of the emergency fading into a uniform, oppressive gray. The sounds of the world, the sirens, the voices, all melted into a profound, suffocating silence. The peaceful detachment I felt shattered, replaced by a growing, creeping dread. I was no longer above the battlefield. I was somewhere else, a place that was vast, empty and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a realm of cold, sterile gray, a desolate landscape that seemed to stretch into infinite nothingness. This was the space between, a cosmic void, but it was not empty. It was filled with hedos. The gray expanse was not empty. It was wide with shadows, whispers, and a profound, pervasive coldness that seeped into my very being, a cold that was far more bone-chilling than any desert night. These were not the demons of sermons, not creatures with horns and pitchforks. They were far more subtle, far more insane. They were the manifestations of chaos, of despair, of the spiritual darkness that war created, given form in this desolate reality. A towering figure, made of swirling, indistinct gray mist, appeared before me. It resonated with a profound sense of cosmic indifference, a chilling reflection of the apathy I sometimes felt towards the wider world beyond my immediate mission. "You believed in physical war, Sergeant," its voice whispered, a dry, rustling sound like countless dead leaves skittering across a barren plain. "You believed in measurable enemies and tangible victories, but the true battle is not fought with bullets. It is fought for the souls of men, and you were blind to it." Other shadows, smaller but equally chilling, swirled around me like static on a dying screen. They were the echoes of unspoken bitterness, of suppressed rage, of the moments I had allowed the brutality of war to harden my own heart. They whispered my own thoughts back to me, twisted into accusations. "You dismissed mercy as weakness. You believed only in force. You thought compassion was a liability on the battlefield. You saw only the enemy, never the man behind the gun, driven by despair, by fear, by ignorance." Each whisper was a shard of ice in my soul, a devastating reminder of my professional detachment, my casual disregard for the spiritual toll of the conflict I was immersed in. My belief that war was a purely physical domain felt like a cruel joke in this place, where the true force was unseen. My confident focus on the immediate objective was now a crushing, suffocating weight, the ultimate consequence of my own spiritual blindness. The terror that bloomed within me was not the fear of pain or torment. It was the terror of ultimate regret, the crushing realization that I had chosen to live a life separate from true spiritual reality, always looking at the tangible, never truly seeing the unseen forces at play. There was no escape. There was no tactical maneuver that could help me here. In that moment of soul-crushing despair, stripped of my rank, my rifle, my very identity as a hardened Marine, all my carefully constructed walls of certainty crumbled into dust. All that remained was a raw, terrified spark of consciousness, a small, lost soul, utterly alone in a universe that felt utterly indifferent, a universe I had helped create by my own unyielding focus on the physical. My knowledge of combat, of tactics, of survival, it was all utterly useless. All that remained was a single desperate, broken plea, a name I had barely whispered with genuine intent in my life, a name I had treated as a distant concept, but now I uttered it as a final desperate hope, a raw cry from the depths of a truly broken heart. "God, please, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone. Help me." My cry was a fragile, trembling whisper in the infinite cold void. Yet it was heard. It was as if that single raw, honest plea ripped a hole in the fabric of the gray desolation. In the far distance, a single point of light appeared. It was infinitesimally small, yet it pulsed with a warmth that I could feel even across the vast cold expanse. The shadowy accusers recoiled, their forms dissolving like mist in the face of an impossible dawn. The cold, sterile gray did not flee from the light. It was absorbed by it, transformed, infused with a vibrant, living energy. The light expanded, not like an explosion, but like a sunrise unfolding in fast motion, its colors bleeding into the void, turning the bleak expanse into a landscape of unimaginable beauty. The oppressive silence was replaced by a sound, a low, resonant hum, that was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. It was a music that felt like a billion lullabies and 1,000 triumphant anthems all at once, the sound of pure, unadulterated peace. I was no longer in the gray void. I was floating, utterly weightless, immersed in an ocean of this conscious, living light. It was pure, unconditional love, a love that knew every act of brutal efficiency I had committed, every moment of cold detachment, every time I had chosen hardened pragmatism over compassion. It knew all of this, and it held me anyway, without judgment, without condemnation, with a tenderness that shattered my broken heart into a million pieces, and then reassembled it, whole and new, cleansed by its embrace. It was the love of a parent who adores their child, not for being perfect, but simply with being. From the heart of this infinite, loving presence, a figure began to coalesce. He was not a general, not a drill sergeant, not a figure of earthly power. He was a being of pure, radiant light, vast and powerful, yet whose eyes held an intimacy that made me feel utterly safe, utterly known. His smile was a homecoming, a recognition that pierced my very soul. My soul knew him instantly, with a certainty that made all my military manuals seem like meaningless scribbles. It was Jesus. He knelt down, so his face, which was made of pure, liquid light, was level with mine. He spoke, not with his mouth but with a direct flow of understanding into my mind, a voice that was pure love and infinite compassion, a voice that was both thunder and whisper. Elias, he said, and my name in his voice felt like the most precious word in the universe. The sound of being fully seen and fully accepted. I heard you. You are not alone. You are home. I have been waiting for you to call, not with your mind but with your heart. You believed in a physical war, but the greatest battle is for the soul, and you are a warrior, Elias, but you have been fighting with one hand tied behind your back. All my fear, all my shame, all the crushing weight of my isolation and regret, dissolved like salt in water. I was safe. I was loved. I was home. Elias, Jesus said, his presence a constant, warm embrace, his smile holding all the joy of creation. You have seen the consequence of spiritual blindness, of fighting only with physical weapons. Now let us look at the choices that made the ripples in your life, not through the lens of tactical success or failure, but through the lens of compassion and its absence, through the lens of how you chose to fight. My entire life, every moment, every thought began to play out around us, not like a recording, but as if we were standing inside the memories themselves, experiencing them from every perspective. We were back in a dusty village, years ago, during my first deployment. We had captured an insurgent, a young man no older than me, his face a mask of hate and fear. I remembered feeling a cold professional satisfaction in securing the enemy. But now, Jesus let me feel what the insurgent felt. I felt his profound indoctrination, the desperation of his poverty, the fear for his family, the terror of a system that offered him no hope but violence. I felt how my own cold efficiency, my focus on the mission, had meant I had seen him as a target, not as a desperate human being, caught in a web of despair. This was a sharp, gray ripple I had created, with my lack of compassion. The scene changed. We were back at base. A new recruit, young and terrified, was struggling with a drill. I remembered mocking him, calling him weak, believing it was necessary to toughen him up. Now Jesus let me feel what the recruit. I felt his profound self-doubt, his yearning to prove himself, and the crushing shame when my words cut him down. My tough love, which I thought was discipline, was a wound, a cold, unloving ripple. Jesus didn't scold me, he simply held my hand, and the love pouring from him was a gentle, healing sorrow that transformed my shame into a desperate longing to mend what I had broken, to go back and offer a hand, instead of a harsh word. You see, beloved Elias, he communicated, his voice infinitely patient. The ripples are real. Every choice, every non-choice, every moment given or withheld, creates a ripple. The world is a vast ocean, and you are always throwing a stone. The golden ones shimmer with joy and connection, and the gray ones cloud the water with sadness and regret. You believed in victory through force, but true victory is won through love. You fought a physical war, but you ignored the spiritual battle that raged around you. The greatest sorrow is not in your sins, but in the missed opportunities, the golden ripples of compassion I had tried to send through you, but you were too focused on the enemy to see them. We saw other scenes, the time I chose to share my meager rations with a starving child, and I felt the surge of gratitude and simple human connection he experienced, a brilliant golden ripple, expanding far beyond that small moment. The time I silently judged a civilian for their perceived weakness, and Jesus showed me the unseen burdens they carried, the quiet struggles that my judgment had only intensified. The lesson was devastatingly simple. My life wasn't about winning a physical war. It was about creating light, about connection, about whether I was truly living each precious second, or constantly deferring it for a future that might never arrive, or worse, a future that was being destroyed by my own indifference. The greatest sorrow was not in my sins, but in the missed opportunities, the golden ripples I had failed to make, by being present and compassionate. When the life review ended, I was left in a state of profound humility, utterly broken, yet completely loved. The hardened Marine, the disciplined warrior, the man of tangible reality, all these identities were stripped away, leaving only a raw, eager, and weeping soul. My Lord, my God, my spirit cried out, my voice thick with tears. I was so blind. I thought I knew war. I thought it was just bullets and bodies. What is the truth of the battlefield then? What is the reality I was so blind to? Jesus looked at me, his eyes burning with a divine love that was both tender and authoritative. Elias, he communicated, his voice resonating with a truth that shook the very foundations of my being. You and many of my beloved children fight wars on the surface, believing they are solely physical. That truth is but a shadow of the fullness of the Father's reality. My Father is not a distant observer of conflict. He is the Lord of hosts, the commander of armies, and his battlefield is far vaster than your physical world. You fight with steel and fire, but the true weapons are spirit and love. The forces of darkness you felt in the gray void, they are present on every battlefield, whispering despair, inciting hatred, amplifying fear, feeding on the pain and indifference of men. They turn brother against brother, nation against nation, not with bullets, but with lies and fear. He then showed me a vision that transcended all my military training. I saw the earth, and over every conflict zone, a swirling oppressive darkness, a cloud of despair and malevolence, hovered low, actively influencing the minds and hearts of men, sowing discord, inciting violence. But then my gaze was drawn to shimmering points of light. Over a small forward operating base, where my brothers were hunkered down, I saw vast radiant beings of light, angels standing sentinel. They were magnificent, terrible in their glory, but their primary essence was a fierce, protective love. I saw them actively deflecting incoming rounds, not with physical shields, but with waves of pure light that disrupted tragedy. I saw them whispering courage into the hearts of terrified soldiers. I saw them carrying away the souls of the fallen, not with grim duty, but with a tender, triumphant embrace. These are my warriors, Elias, Jesus communicated, his voice filled with an affable, knowing joy. These are the true forces in every conflict. They respond to prayer, to faith, to a single sincere cry for help. They are the unseen shield against the darkness. You believed your armor was steel. It is not. Your true armor is my love. Your true weapon is your faith, and the prayers of your loved ones at home. Every single prayer offered for you on the home front was a shield I placed around you, a warrior I sent to stand by your side. Every act of kindness, every moment of mercy you offered, became a light in that darkness, pushing back the shadows, protecting not just souls but even bodies. You were fighting with only half the truth. The revelation was an earthquake that shattered the very foundations of my military worldview. War was not just physical, it was profoundly spiritual, fought not only by men, but by unseen forces, powered by prayer and acts of love. My understanding of the battlefield, of protection, of courage, was utterly transformed. My Lord, my God, my spirit cried out. I was so blind. I thought I was fighting alone. I thought prayer was just for comfort. I should have been praying with every breath. I should have been teaching my men to pray. Jesus' presence was filled with a profound and urgent compassion. Your regret is a gateway to truth, beloved Elias, he communicated, his voice resonating with divine authority. But it must not become another distraction, another way to postpone living and fighting the true battle. Now you see, and this truth is not for you alone. My children on earth are living in a profound delusion. They believe that wars are only fought with weapons, that battles are won only by might, that their prayers are merely whispers in the wind. They are blind to the spiritual forces that are constantly at work, both for good and for evil. They are fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, because they do not know the true weapons, the true armor. He then showed me a vision of humanity, both on battlefields and in civilian life, struggling, afraid, surrounded by subtle forces of despair, of apathy, of division, of hatred, forces that were winning precisely because humanity was unaware of them, fighting only on the physical plane. My Father desires all his children to live fully, live presently, to know the joy and power of the eternal now. Jesus communicated, your mission, Elias, is to be a witness. Your mission is to declare this truth. There are angels on the battlefield, not just the physical battlefield of war, but the battlefield of life itself. Tell them their prayers are weapons. Tell them their kindness is armor. Tell them their faith is a shield. Tell them they are not fighting alone, for I am with them, and my angels fight alongside them, when they choose to open their eyes and their hearts to this unseen reality. A part of me, the human part, cried out in desperate protest. They will never believe me. My old squad captain Miller. They will say I'm mad, that it's trauma-induced hallucination. My military career, my reputation. I will lose everything. Jesus looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the suffering of his own life on earth, the rejection he had faced from his own people, the very cross he had borne. I did not promise you an easy Elias, he said, his voice firm but filled with an unwavering love. But I promised you that I will be with you, in every single moment you choose to be present, to speak my truth. Your testimony is not to convince by argument, but to awaken by witness. You will speak the truth I have shown you, not to win a debate about spiritual forces, but to ignite a fire of faith and courage in their hearts. Go and declare it. Tell the world what you have seen. Tell them to pick up the true weapons, to put on the true armor. Tell them that their battles are far from over, but they are not fighting alone. This is my command. This is your life's true purpose. The weight of the command was immense, terrifying in its implications, but the truth was undeniable, and the love was absent. My soul, broken and remade, finally surrendered to the impossible. Yes, my Lord, I whispered, the words a sacred vow. I will go. The moment I consented, the world of light and love, the divine presence of Jesus, I was not gently guided back. I was hurled, thrown, slammed back into the broken, aching prison of my physical body with a violent, agonizing jolt. A convulsive gasp for air tore through my lungs. A scream of pure, searing pain. My eyes flew open to the chaotic, flashing reality of an ambulance interior. A paramedic's face, startled and disbelieving, was inches from mine. He's breathing. He's got a pulse. I don't believe it, he yelled to his partner. We have brain activity. He's back. The next few days were a disorienting blur of the intensive care unit, of beeping machines and hushed, astonished conversations between doctors and nurses who looked at my charts, then at me, then at each other, shaking their heads in professional bewilderment. Clinical death for at least 10 minutes, one doctor told Maria, his voice strained with disbelief. The IED blast was catastrophic. The extent of his injuries, combined with the lack of recent brain damage, there is no medical precedent. It's truly a miracle. They were scientists looking at a shattered compass, unable to comprehend the divine territory I had just traversed. Maria was a constant, solid presence at my side. Her face was a landscape of profound relief and exhaustion, her prayer beads constantly moving through her fingers. Thank you, God, she would whisper, kissing my hand. You returned my husband to me. Her prayers of gratitude were heartfelt, directed to the God she had always known. My squad brothers, the survivors, visited, their faces a mix of grim relief and confusion. Captain Miller came, his usually stoic demeanor showing cracks of bewildered awe. "Vance," he said, his voice rough, "what the hell just happened out there? The reports are impossible. You shouldn't be here." He was trying to fit what had happened into his burst of strategy and logic. And it wouldn't fit. I was physically broken, but my spirit was more whole and alive than ever. I was filled with a love and a purpose, so profound it felt like a star burning in my chest. But the message I carried was a fire that would either purify or destroy everything I had ever held dear. My identity, my military career, my family, my community, all of it stood on one side of a deep, terrifying chasm. On the other side stood Jesus, his eyes full of love, waiting for me to take the first step onto the bridge he had asked me to become a messenger for the urgency of the unseen battle. My physical recovery was a long and arduous journey, riddled with pain and the slow, frustrating process of rehabilitation, but it was nothing compared to the spiritual reconstruction happening within me. My old identity as a hardened Marine, a purely physical warrior, felt like a costume I could no longer wear. The world I had returned to seemed both more vibrant and more shrouded in a pervasive, gray spiritual blindness. I saw the unseen forces everywhere, the whispers of despair in a soldier's eyes, the threads of anger in a heated argument, the quiet, malevolent spirit of indifference permeating so many hearts. My old life, my uniform, my rank, my medals, they all felt like hollow, meaningless props from a play that had ended. How could I go back to fighting a physical war when I knew the true battle was for souls and so many were fighting blind? I tried to share my message, my urgent warning and profound revelation. I told Maria, my wife, first. "Maria," I whispered, my voice raw with emotion, "when I was in that darkness after the blast, I called out to God, and He answered. He sent Jesus, and He showed me the battlefield. It's not what we think. There are angels, there's a real fight for souls. Our prayers, their weapons." Maria listened, her eyes filled with fresh tears, this time not just of joy at my survival but of a quiet, profound understanding that resonated with her lifelong gentle faith. "Oh Elias," she whispered, stroking my hair, "I always knew. I felt them, I prayed them there. Thank God you see it now." Her acceptance was a healing balm, a confirmation that the love and urgency I had experienced were not a delusion. My son Tariq listened to my story with the thoughtful skepticism of an intellectual. "Dad, it sounds like a profound near-death experience," he said gently. "The brain can create powerful visions under stress. Perhaps it's your subconscious, integrating your faith with your combat trauma, creating a narrative of spiritual warfare. It's a powerful story, a personal truth." He accepted the fruit of my experience, my newfound peacefulness, my heightened empathy, my focus on spiritual rather than just physical strength, even if he couldn't accept the tree it grew from. My former squad leader, Sergeant Davis, came to visit me in the hospital. He was a hardened realist, a man who believed only in what he could see and touch. I tried to tell him what I saw, the angels, the spiritual darkness. He listened patiently, then squeezed my shoulder. "Vance," he said, his voice flat, "you've been through a lot. Your mind's playing tricks on you. Focus on getting better. That's the only reality we know." I realized then that my journey would be one of profound loneliness in my absolute certainty among many, but also of unexpected, quiet connections with open hearts among others. My military career, my former goals of climbing the ranks, they all began to lose their grip on me. The passion for enforcing physical security was replaced by an urgent desire to awaken spiritual awareness, to arm others with the unseen weapons I had been shown. I saw that every delayed word of love, every moment of withheld empathy, every prayer left unspoken, was a missed opportunity for the forces of light to gain ground. The path ahead was clear though terrifying. I would not, deny the truth I had seen. My reputation as a strong, unwavering Marine was now a burden, a constraint on the message I was compelled to share. I chose to take a medical discharge, a decision that shocked my military family and baffled my superiors. They saw it as a breakdown, a man losing his nerve after severe trauma. I saw it as a liberation. I was no longer Sergeant Vance, the combat veteran. I was simply Elias, a humble, broken, and remade man, who had glimpsed the true nature of the cosmic battle. The first few months were a wilderness of grief and isolation from my old life. My former colleagues saw me as weak, perhaps even mentally unwell. Many friends drifted away, uncomfortable with my newfound urgency and the radical nature of my message. In my moments of deepest despair, when the loneliness felt like a physical weight, I would close my eyes and remember the promise Jesus had given me: I will be with you always, you will not be alone. And in the silence of my heart, I would feel a warmth, a peace, a presence, that me I was not alone. The love I had felt in the light was not just a memory, it was a living wellspring within me, a source of courage I never knew I possessed. Stripped of my uniform and my military identity, I had to find a new way to be the messenger I was commanded to be. I started with the one thing I had left: my story. I began speaking, not in the crisp, procedural language of military operations, but in simple, direct accounts of my experience, which I shared at local churches, veteran support groups, community centers and online. I spoke of the overwhelming love, the terrifying truth of spiritual warfare, the profound reality of angels over the battlefield. I expected ridicule, but something surprising happened. People began to listen, a few at first, then dozens, then hundreds. I received emails from veterans from all branches, confessing to similar unspoken experiences, a sense of an unseen presence during combat. Your story has given me words for what I felt, one wrote. I thought I was going crazy. I received emails from mothers and wives, tears of gratitude for the confirmation that their prayers actually mattered. My son is deployed, one wrote, and your story is the only thing that gives me peace. But the most profound change happened in my own home. My son Tariq, who had listened with an open heart from the beginning, became my strongest ally. He joined me in establishing a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting veterans with PTSD, offering not just therapy but spiritual counseling, helping them integrate their combat experiences with the unseen realities they often dimly perceive. He saw the peace, the radical love, the profound authenticity that radiated from me, even in the face of widespread skepticism. Dad, he told me one evening, his eyes shining with tears, I always knew there was more to reality than physics. You just went to the source to prove it. Now you live what you preach, and that's all I need to know. My life is now a quiet pilgrimage, a journey of active witness. I am no longer Sergeant Elias Vance, the combat veteran. I am simply Elias, a humble, broken, and remade man, who has been given a glimpse into the true nature of the cosmic battle. I have no official rank, no grand platform, no large congregation. My life is a series of small, quiet encounters, of sharing my story one heart at a time. My wife Maria continues to be my steadfast companion, her simple, profound faith now fully aligned with the overwhelming truth I carry. She saw the genuine transformation in me, the unwavering love, the profound peace that had replaced my old rigidity. One evening, after months of my quiet witness, she came to me. Elias, she said, her voice soft, I always prayed for your protection. Now you are teaching me how to truly fight. You are a living testament to God's presence. Her words were the healing of my deepest wound, the answer to a prayer I had not dared to pray. My son Tariq still holds his scientific framework, but he now sees the profound human and spiritual impact of my experience. He has dedicated his work to helping veterans heal, integrating spiritual insight with practical support. He sees the goodness, even if he doesn't accept the literal supernatural explanation for my change. My life is now a living declaration of the truth I was shown, that there are angels over the battlefield, and over every struggle in life. And so I feel compelled to speak to you now, directly from my heart. You who are listening, perhaps from a position of faith, perhaps from skepticism, perhaps from a different life path altogether. I am here to tell you, with the certainty of a man who has died and been returned to life, that the God you seek, the source of all love and truth, is far grander, far more intimate, and far more actively involved in your daily battles than any of us have ever imagined. The world is not just physical, it is profoundly spiritual. There are forces of darkness and light constantly at work, influencing hearts and minds, sowing despair or planting hope. The battles you fight, whether in a war zone, in your home, in your workplace, or within your own mind, are not fought alone. You have unseen allies, vast beings of light, angels who respond to a single sincere cry for help.
to a heart filled with faith, to a prayer offered in love. Your fears, your anxieties, your feeling of being overwhelmed, these are whispers from the darkness, trying to disarm you. Your faith, your prayers, your acts of kindness, your compassion, these are your true weapons, your true armor. So I ask you, I implore you, do not live in fear, do not fight alone, do not dismiss the unseen. Arm yourselves not just with what you can see and touch, but with the power of the Spirit. Pray, pray without ceasing, pray for your loved ones, pray for your enemies, pray for every single prayer you utter is a shield for yourself and for others. Every act of kindness you perform sends a warrior of light into the world. Embrace the unseen battle, for it is the most real battle of all. And remember, always remember, you are not alone. There are angels over your battlefield, waiting for you to call.